Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's August 10th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And man, what a day. Honestly, the trading day was just pretty much flat, sideways, not much movement, just kind of up and down, nothing consistent. All of this movement came in the overnight hours off of a 7:30 a.m. news item. That's what drove this up, and doesn't mean that it wasn't still a rally today, but for the most part today was just real tight sideways, fighting this resistance. Nobody wants to sell this thing, um, and they keep driving it up pretty much during the overnight session is what they're doing. We do have a close outside of this Cayenne channel. You can see it right there. We've moved to a new high. We've more than surpassed a measured move, which is you can see the kind of orange color there. If I zoom in a little bit, maybe you can see it a little better. But the thing I want to show you is we've still got this blue channel. We've had to break, and nothing even, I mean, it looked like maybe we may go for a retest here, but nothing since then. Every target to the upside we keep meeting and surpassing. So the next target is the resistance here. Are we going to that target? It sure looks like it. You can't argue with the price action. As much as I want to tell you that this thing should be going lower and I expect us to retest these lows, hasn't happened yet. And I could be completely wrong, and the chart may not follow through, and this thing may rocket straight up again. We're way overbought here. Doesn't mean we can't get further overbought. Everything is screaming this market should be selling off, and somehow they keep pushing it higher. And it's happening on lower volume, lower volatility. And so to me, it feels like it doesn't feel normal. That's the only thing I know to say. It doesn't feel normal. It feels contrived. So I'm not trying to say that there's not somebody buying and it's not going up, but when I show you the chart, you'll see what I'm talking about. And let's flip over to that chart. Okay, here's our 2,000 tick chart, and you can see all of the movement came in one big move during a news item. Is CPI month over month and the core CPI month over month. And I mean, we moved up from 7:30. That entire move basically lasted 4 minutes. So all of that movement came in a 4-minute period on very low. I mean, this whole big bar moving up here is 2,000 ticks. So that's very low volume to move from 41.41 to basically 41.75. So 34 points on 2,000 ticks is all it took to move 34 points. When 34 points a few years ago might have been a whole day. And so it's very low volume that moved this up, and it's probably because it's in the overnight session. Has a lot to do with it. And so, but you can see from that point on, we basically did nothing. Prices moved from that high from the news at 734. That was at 41.99, and prices moved a whole, I guess, 13, 14 points. So nothing after that. Maybe the same down. You can see the measured move down. This dash line is a measured move. The other thing to take note of here is that there's a huge gap on this chart. This was the high from yesterday, and this is where we opened today, and we didn't go but to here, to this, basically a measured move based on that width of that pink range right there. So there's still a gap between here and there, and usually a news gap, they'll take that news back within an hour. Very rarely do I ever see it not take it back on the same day within the first hour. It usually pulls back to the original point, resets, and kind of starts over. So that leads me to believe that at some point this thing's going to turn, and when it does, it's going to turn, and it's going to turn hard. Well, till we see that, don't be betting on that. Don't be trading on that. Wait till you see it with your own two eyes. But I still think the path of least resistance is down. Nobody wants to buy this. I mean, they can't take it higher from here. I mean, look how much they struggled. They couldn't sell this thing off, but nobody could take it higher. It's just like the buyers are not really there, but nobody wants to sell it either. That's what it feels like to me. Everybody's afraid to sell. They want to see more. They want to know this rally's over. And looking at the daily chart, I mean, it could be over now, but there's nothing. There's nothing that shows me that they won't finagle and take this thing even higher yet. And at some point, they'll run out of buyers most likely, and this thing will turn like a and sink like the Titanic. But until you see that happen, as long as it keeps going higher, I mean, this is hard to trade. It's hard to really say this market's going higher because this all came on one news item at 7:30 in the morning and lasted 4 whole minutes. And you might have got a chance to enter at the right when as the news is striking. And if you didn't do that, then you didn't really have a chance to do anything the rest of the day. I mean, this feels like the old days of the rumors of the plunge protection team. They take it up in the overnight when there's no volume, and then it used to tank, and it would tank back down in the day, but it couldn't go anywhere because they'd take it back up every night. So is that really true? I don't know. It sure seems that way, but it's up to you to make your own, come to your own conclusions of what's going on. But this just feels really contrived to me. It doesn't feel like a market that rallies that hard and doesn't sell off should have made another measured leg up, and it didn't even come close. So, I mean, they couldn't take it anywhere. They couldn't get it. They really had a tough time taking it above. First of all, they couldn't hardly get above 4,200, and they finally took it up, and they took it about 10 or 12 points at the most. So, anyway, enough about that. 6 minutes in there. Let's just get through the trades. There's not a lot of them. I mean, it's just not very good trading. I mean, there's not a lot here to trade and to easily trade. I mean, you can see there's no, I mean, it looked like we might have a consistent range, and then it breaks lower, it comes back, and then it breaks a little lower, then it comes up short to the highs, then it makes a measured move down, then it runs all the way back up to a measured move to the top. This was a pretty good trend here, but again, not any real setups to join it. I mean, you just kind of have to watch. I mean, you might have taken this trade. I didn't mark it, but if you wanted to be aggressive, you might take that trade right there. And if you do that, you catch this whole thing. But if you don't enter there, there's nowhere to enter this thing all the way up. There's not a safe place to enter all the way up. And it's hard to watch a market move from basically 41.78 to 42.10 and you don't even get a chance to enter it unless you just want to throw a dart at a board and hope that it keeps going. And most of you know that if you see these kind of moves, and as soon as you throw the dart at the board, you get stopped out, and it doesn't go. You end up buying the tops. You can't buy into this resistance, and there's no other entry up there, and you can't buy into the support here because it's acting as resistance. You don't want to buy into that midline. And so where do you buy? Where do you buy here safely? Maybe at this pullback here because we aren't to the high, and there is a hidden second entry, but that would be the only place that I see that you might buy there. And you don't get to run that because they come back and you get your scalp out of it, but you don't get a runner because they come back and take you out. So there's just really no good chance to enter that move. But anyway, you see it here. It's an ugly day. I mean, there's no consistent turning here. You had a little bit of a downtrend you could trade here. Looked like we were going to go higher again, and there's a reversal here that maybe you trade. I mean, I don't see anything in here that says, hey, come trade me. It's a sure thing, and so there's not many trades today. But let's just start here at the very beginning. We'll go through the trades, and I'm going to move through them pretty quickly because it's really ugly. So it's a shame the market can move that many points in 4 minutes, and then that's it for the rest of the day, and it doesn't take it back either. I mean, that's very rare. I'm just going to tell you don't see that very often at all. Usually it takes those news moves back within a few minutes, or else it starts another trend, and you get a chance to ride the second leg all the way up. And you didn't get either opportunity today. You probably just got chopped to pieces trying to find something in here, thinking we were either going to go lower or higher, and it never comes. So this is tough trading. So, if you struggled, that's just the way. I mean, it's just tough trading. It really is for anybody. But anyway, you can see here we're working up here. We're working out. And look at before 7 o'clock. Look how low the volume is. There's no volume at all, and that's why they were able to move it so far on a single 2,000 tick bar because there's nobody selling it to fight somebody big enough come in here and buy. I mean, who knows? Maybe 100 contracts could drive it that far. It probably doesn't take much. So obviously it was 2,000 ticks, but we don't know how many contracts that is. So I'm sure it was more than 100, but I'm just saying, using that as an example, is we don't really know. It may not have taken much at all to drive it up because there's nobody selling it. And you get one big buyer or one institution comes in and says, hey, we think this market's going higher yet. Let's buy. And somebody can drive it up with no problem at all. But anyway, that's what happened here. Just didn't take much to drive it up. But anyway, we're working up. You got a new low here, and you get a first entry, and it bounces off the key entry. It kind of sets the key entry point, and then it comes back and it ticks lower. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it ticks lower there and then turns up. And when it went past here, you might join in that. It's a news item. We knew the target that we were looking for was probably, actually, no, this wasn't it. We were looking for the measured move on the daily chart, and it was further up here. So that would have been the target to the upside. But right now, I would have just, early on, my only target would have probably been on this chart. Let's just go back to reality here, real-time trading. That would have been your target. So yeah, that blue line was kind of rather close to our target. So you might have taken that, but it's a risky trade. I marked it green. Maybe you take it. You wouldn't expect this to happen, but this is exactly what, I mean, you might expect it to run up to here in a few bars and turn back down on a measured move, but no, this thing just keeps going and going and going and going. And it only took 4 minutes. That's what's so comical about it. But anyway, it comes up here, you finally get a close outside new high, and it just keeps chopping sideways there. But you can see right in here, prices start below the EMA, above it, below it, and suddenly we get a little trend here, and maybe you trade that one. But early on, this is just a range. We're back and forth, and notice we made the new high, and you get a lower high here, and a fairly good signal bar, and we just came off the highs for like the third time. That's a triple test. Unfortunately, that wasn't good enough, but this lower high, yeah, it's still above the EMA, but you can see we've been pushing above and below it here, and it's pretty obvious this pink range is in play, and we're not back to this trend line. So there's plenty of room back here, and then even more back to down here, and you're going to hit one or the other. And so I like going short there. It's a little bit aggressive. I mean, this is not a perfect trade either, but it's one you might consider. And of course, we do get the break here. And looking back at this, I guarantee you somebody's probably going to ask me about this trade. Yeah, it's a second entry. It's pretty much a doji at the key entry point. Don't take that trade. This even though it's 2 legs down and we're back at the key entry point, you got to wait on a high or low right there, because you just don't know that bar. I mean, if it had a real strong bullish bar that closes way off that line, you can see this thing closed right at the trend line. Technically, it looks like it almost closed below it. And maybe it did, because my line might be off a hair. And then you get another leg down. So now you just can't go long until you get a better setup. And notice then we get a 2 legs back to the trend line in the EMA. So that's a second entry short. And we've already got a break. There's a chance we could go higher here, and we could be going to the high side of the range, but I like that just to ride it back, because they'll probably come back and test this one more time to make sure it's going to hold, or if prices might go lower. And you can see it's holding, but we're pushing through, and you would expect this to probably fail. If you got a good signal bar here, maybe you go short on another second entry. I probably wouldn't take that even if it was a good signal bar. I'd want to see it turn down off the bottom side of that line, and it never does. Yeah, it does get a break and a new low, so this is obviously a valid channel here. Makes a new low, and then it bounces. And so you do get a higher low here, but that's congested. It's right into the EMA, right into the, I mean, there's probably enough room to scalp out here, but we've been consistently below the EMA, so it could turn up there and hit the EMA and make one more leg down to another low and make this measured move right here. It doesn't, it goes higher, but I don't think you want to go long or short right there. So bounces. This one was tempting here because it is a high right off, and you haven't reached the upper side of the channel, which is what you would think would be your target. And this green trend channel is still in play, but that's just the first entry. And I think you need a higher low or a second entry or something, and you don't get it. It just runs on to the top, and then it's running down again. Here you do at least get a reversal. Notice you're coming down first entry, second entry, and you're not back to the lows yet. Really nice signal bar. I like that one just to try to reach the lows, and it does, and it goes a little bit further and then bounces. And you get a higher low here, but look at that. I didn't mark this one, but there's a little congestion area there, and you just, I don't think you want to go long there. I'd want to see it push out and come back like it does here. So maybe you enter right here, but again, it just looks really congested, and you would expect prices to try to go back up to the highs and maybe make a new high here. So if you're going to enter on this kind of stuff, it would be here, but because that's congested, I'm not crazy about it. I don't like any of these trades. Here's another one where it's coming back, but we don't have a new high yet, and we haven't reached the high. You would expect prices to try to go higher at least one more time, which they do. And so you get a triple test here, but look at your signal bar. It's green. It's bullish. So you can't go short way down here, even if it had closed bearish. It ends up going lower, but I wouldn't take a triple test going short into that support. So still nothing to trade here. It drops on down, and it looks like we're going to fail on a breakout again here. It probably does trap some people right here because there's definitely a triple test. But again, that signal bar is not very good. If you traded this, I don't know if it broke higher or lower first. I don't remember. If it did break higher and turn down, maybe you trade that on an engulfing bar. But with that being an inside bar and being a doji, and the possibility that this could end as a doji too, I'm not crazy about that trade. I definitely wouldn't trade it like it is now. Turns out to be a great move, but I wouldn't risk it. And it does run down and make some pretty much a measured move. It missed it by a tick, it looks like. We already talked about that one. You've got your two legs down. You've got your close outside, a new low. You've moved a measured move. It's not quite there yet. It's a pretty good signal bar. I think you're better off to wait on a higher low, and you never get one. It runs all the way straight to the midline or EMA there. So maybe you take that trade. I think you're better off to wait. Then it looks like, hey, maybe we'll get a reversal pattern and get a chance to go long, and then look, it's just congestion. I would probably draw that like, I'd probably draw it like so. So once again, no chance to really get long or short there. And it just keeps going. Again, right here, it does come back to at least confirm that trend line and test it. And you could argue there's a hidden second entry there. And that's a pretty good signal bar. So look how close we came to the highs there, though. But there's no close outside. So maybe you ride that one up. But again, you probably don't get anything other than a scalp, and they come back and get your runner before they take it higher. Even if this would have broke lower, I still don't think I would trade into that triple top and this resistance. Yeah, it turns out to be a great trade, but very rarely will that ever happen. This is just one of those days, and you know, if you gamble on that, you'll end up losing 9 times out of 10. This is the one time it worked. So we do get the close outside, a huge move up, a bit of an overshoot, and then we get the lower high right here, and fairly bearish bar. And it does confirm that trend line. I don't know if I'd call that a confirmation, but you can draw that trend line there, and this fits perfectly pretty much. And you got the real key is you got room back to the EMA there. Doesn't matter, it just keeps going. Then it comes back, and you get a failure right here. And that's the first close outside, so you'd expect a retest of the low. So I like that one. And then of course we do bounce after that. Um, I don't. There's no high or low. There's no second entry. There's no anything here. Just you gotta move up, close outside, new high, and then it turns down. Maybe you take this second entry. Notice the move up, first entry, then you get a close outside, new high. So there's a second entry right there. And I like that one just because we're probably, this breakout and move to a little bit more to measured move, and the fact that we can't, this is already played out. We're probably going lower here. I was really thinking, hey, maybe we'll get a measured move here, and we eventually do. We'll get a little more than that, but it didn't happen on that leg. So nothing seems to follow through, and that's just because there's no rhyme or reason. This market's just chopping around. There's no direction. There's nobody willing to buy it. There's nobody really willing to sell it. And if they get a little momentum going, they take it farther than it probably should go, because it doesn't take much to move it. That's probably part of the reason. But anyway, this runs straight down. You get a close outside. It doesn't make a new low. It makes a double bottom basically. Then you run up and you get a first entry short. It runs higher, and then you get a second entry short. So you might treat that one as a failure. Fairly nice signal bar. Maybe you take that one. I like that one. Just because it's going to trap people. That's probably going to trap people thinking that we're going to go lower, because that's what you would think would happen. We should normally go lower here. Instead, it goes higher. Runs up here, just makes it a little bit higher. All they really do is run the stops on the people that got short right here. They had their stops right there. And then it goes exactly where we thought it was going to go when you got short right there. So they're just running stops and tricking people. And I mean, again, there's no real rhyme or reason to what's happening here other than stop running and traps and things of that nature. So, of course, it does run up. You get your close outside, 2 legs up, and it turns back down. It's tempting to go short right there, but I'd wait, because that is not a convincing close, although it does look like it closed outside. I believe it is a close outside, but it came close here. You definitely couldn't call that convincing, but that one is. So, but I still don't, because I don't think it's convincing close. You don't know. This does look a little like an overshoot, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, you could still draw it like that and all the turns still work. So, I don't think you go short there. You do get a lower high here, but look, it's it's an engulf. It's not even an engulfing bar. It's just 3 equal highs. So maybe you trade that as a lower high, but it's really moved too far to be a lower high. If it would have broke higher right there and turned down and given you a really bearish bar, maybe you consider going short there. But this just looks like congestion, and I don't see any reason to trade that, especially since this was an inside bar. It does make an equal high, but look where it's closed 3 times in a row. That's just not, turns out to be a great move, but it just doesn't, that's not the way it sets up. Then of course we bounce here. There's a failed second entry short, but it's another one that maybe you trade, but I think it's too risky right into that resistance, because it could fail, and it does fail for a little bit. Is there enough for it to work? It looks like there is, but you just can't bet on that up front. Yeah, there's 2 points there. So I just don't think you want to take that. I don't see anything in there I like. Maybe a short right here. You might argue that looks like a triple test, but you're going short right into the former resistance that seems to be acting as support now. So it's not a very good idea. So again, I don't think, that's just too congested there. Maybe you take the long here on a triple test on such a small bar with only 5 ticks, but again, it closes below, back inside the range. It's been bouncing every time though, so maybe you take that with only 5 ticks of risk. That's about as good as it gets today, to be honest. It's just how the kind of day it is. Of course, we come back, we get a close outside, move to a new high, and there is a second entry short there again. I didn't mark that one. Again, it looks a little sideways. Um, Maybe you take that trade. Lower high here, but it's right into the back, right in. Come on, it's back right into. It's looking like resistance of what was, or looking like support of what was resistance, and that could bounce and make another leg up. So it ends up going down, bouncing right off the lows again. Really what happened here is your lows have moved lower now. Because you can see the last closes were here, and that's where it closes again. So that one's kind of tempting, other than you're in this channel working now. It does look like an overshoot, but are we guaranteed that's an overshoot? No. So it's another one you could argue for green. And there's probably others in here that you could argue for green. I mean, there's a lot of green ones, but and it just takes off. No other backup. There's no other breaks lower, setups, anything. Just runs straight up and makes another new high. Very similar to what this, a couple more here, but still, and just different from the last few. And it drops down. Look how it goes through the EMA, and you get a first entry, second entry. And you could argue that's a little bit congested, so that's a chance to get short at the high of a congestion. So you could trade that kind of like a range on a failed breakout too. So you could trade that one either way, really. It's a second entry short off the trend line. It's a failed break out of the little congestion. Plenty of room there. I like that one. Drops on down. There's another short right here. Again, that's a second entry, but it's just too congested. It's really turns out to be more resistance than anything. But notice how it comes back yet again. And now you got a triple test. And it's the first close outside on this channel. So we'll probably attempt to make a new low. And it ends up, I mean, you get a quick scalp, but again, they get your runner. And that's a lower high on the second entry, but this is your signal bar, so you don't even get a good signal bar there. Turns out to be a pretty good trade, but again, you can't go short there, and I wouldn't be looking to go long or short out of that. Maybe with the double bottom here after the break and a couple of legs down, maybe you risk this one to go long. I just don't know. I wouldn't. I don't think I would, but it's another one. Maybe you make that green. It's a good bit away from the EMA. And notice we're not staying away from the EMA very long today at all. Anytime you get away, it snaps back pretty strongly and pretty quickly. Same thing here. That's just the first entry, so wait on the second entry, and it looks like it's going to trigger one here. It doesn't. It just goes higher again. And again, I don't see any trap, anything to try to get in that, and that takes you pretty much, the first break takes you into 230, and there's not even a setup there on the next leg up again. So one of those days. So if you felt like this was a difficult day and nothing made sense, that's because it didn't. So your read or your feelings were pretty good. It's just one of those. It's just an odd trading day, and a lot of questions. Why the market did what it did. We'll never know for sure. Maybe this is all legitimate. Some big buyer came in thinking, "Hey, I'm going to take a roll that we're going higher," and they did. And again, I think what's happening up here is nobody's willing to sell it. Yet nobody's really willing to come in, and the big guys are really not wanting to buy at this price, and nobody's willing to sell it at this price yet. Nobody's convinced that we're going lower yet. So you just kind of get this weird sideways day that has no direction to it. And that's not uncommon to get a day like that, but it's very uncommon to have a day like this after a move like that. Because usually what will happen again is they'll take that move back within the next hour. Almost always a news move like that, they take it back really quickly. And if they don't, it usually leads to another leg up that's a huge rally. And that didn't happen either. It looked like for a little bit that huge leg up might occur. And nope, no can do. And maybe it's because it's after a huge rally that's probably already moved way too far, the market's way overbought, and it's into that 4,200 kind of emotional 100 century type levels. Those are what we call century mark price levels, and they're usually very emotional levels. So there it is. I'm not going to drag this out. We're 30 minutes here, and this was not a very good trading day. It was just a lot of price action and movements to go through. And again, it's on very low volume. Not a lot of volume here. I mean, I'm still shocked at that move with such low volume. But that's why it probably moved like that, because there's no volume in that early session. I mean, that's usually by after 7 o'clock the volume is picking up. But you can see into 7 o'clock, which came right in here, you had that many bars. I mean, usually we have that many bars in 30 minutes, even in the overnight. And that's a whole overnight session of probably, well, let's just see. I'm curious. Whole overnight session of what? Where did 7 come? I can't remember. I think it was right in this little, somewhere right in here. 7 o'clock came. So 35 to 40 bars. I mean, that's just very, very tiny. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Believe it or not, tomorrow's Thursday. Going to wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Friday. So, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.